There's a slight delay that throws me there.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Developers, otherwise known as Devx5. My name is Ian Jennings. This is Chris Chinchilla.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry, a bit late. We were grappling with two things. I've got an ad blocker that I seem to have made more aggressive, and Restream, which we use, which is a very nice tool, but they've been really pushing this a couple of new features, and I think they moved a few things around, and I sent Ian the wrong link because I was just copying it from where I normally copied it from. So I need to figure that out.
Trying to debug the cores issue. I was looking at the console and getting cores issues, and then I was like, oh, I have this cores extension, which is blocking chat, which is stopping me from connecting. So, yeah.
So the two of us were doing things we shouldn't really be. Well, shouldn't be doing, but we caused our own problems. But also, I caused the problem. So
Is the developer
we know what we're talking about, don't we, Ian? What do we know we're talking about?
What are we talking about? We're talking about
what do we apparently know?
That's true. Yeah. Well, today we're going to give our review of HashiCorp's Terraform.
Yeah.
And no better two imbeciles to try to get started with the DX as us.
I know what you mean. Last episode, so 2 weeks ago, if you want to have a look, we decided we'd work our way through at least the more well-known HashiCorp tools to see kind of if their developer experience continues throughout them, how they evolve over time, and some of the commonalities and things. We looked at Vagrant, which I think we remembered from our kind of PHP stack days, and then Packer, which kind of automated Vagrant, I guess. And then I think this is from now on is where the company enters kind of the modern era, shall we say. Terraform and Console. We actually use Terraform a lot at work, and I'm only just starting to understand it myself. What about you?
I've only heard developers in the bullpen talk about it for the most part. I've spent most of my career just doing DevRel one-off getting started projects. So a lot of these larger infrastructure products, I'm kind of 1 degree away from.
Yeah. And actually, it just reminded me one thing I don't think we forgot to mention that came up just after our last episode? That HashiCorp after 10 plus years are going public.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that
you see this. It did. And you see this a lot with a lot of their messaging now. They've gone a lot more for these enterprise versions of everything, which makes a lot of sense. And it's actually interesting to see because I think in the same week, GitLab also announced, and I don't know how old GitLab is, but actually it takes some time for some of these companies to go public. It's kind of made me think about that, like to feel like they're mature enough to have real value as opposed to VC value. Like how long can it actually take? Even some of these companies that feel like they've been around forever, it takes some time.
Yeah, there's kind of some arbitrary restrictions on going public. There's like some revenue requirements or something, but it's not. I think it's more of a strategic decision based, like more than more than a minimum requirement or a timing thing.
So we should basically say, if you want to be in that position, pitch your product to us, and the next day you should be ready.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty much what we're saying, I think, isn't it? Yeah. I was also discussing with a colleague yesterday about how Google Cloud rarely goes down, and then it went down.
Screens back there.
Wow.
Chris is really behind it all.
Anyway, let's stop.
Can you get me on the front page of Hacker News?
Huh?
So can you get me on the front page of Hacker News?
I've never understood that trick, so don't ask me. Okay, let me move you over to there so I don't end up doing the infinite tunnel. I'm just going to very quickly just jump in and share the browser window of Terraform. There we go. Oh, look at that. Nice. And I'll bring you in a... Not quite sure what I'm sharing here. I feel like I'm accidentally sharing my browser and not my desktop, but we'll come to that in a second. And I think this is a trend that we've seen across the board with their tools. They have a kind of company motto around automation. So you can't read that now. Automate infrastructure on any cloud, provision change and version resources on any environment. And this is usually what people do a lot with Terraform. Now, we're already at this point where we could see they've changed their model. It's like, sign up for Terraform Cloud. No, we're kind of interested in the open source one. How do we find it? I guess documentation. Yeah, interesting. That's changed a bit. Let's maybe... there we go. Get started. Okay, great. I think I realize I'm accidentally just sharing my browser, so let's jump out of that and come back to the whole thing. There we go. Nice. Yeah, infrastructure as code. I actually kind of get the impression that Terraform might have invented this word. I'm not sure. It's hard to say. It's one of those sorts of... I kind of feel like I should ask you what you think this does, Ian, because I kind of know because we use it. So what do you think you would use it for?
I mean, it's to me, I can't tell the difference between this and Vagrant. I think it's going to spawn servers and network and configure networking and do some kind of Docker-like thing. That's my understanding.
It's fairly, I think that's actually on initial read, that's fairly accurate. I get the feeling that as HashiCorp have gone on, their tools have got more and more abstract. You know, Vagrant was kind of very specific. We create a virtual machine for you. And then now it's like we create machines. Where they are, it's up to you, you know. And I think that's kind of where they start to... When you look at something like Waypoint, which is their most recent tool, it's become even more abstract. But let's get started. Learn how it solves our infrastructure challenges. What infrastructure challenges do you have, Ian?
I don't have many infrastructure challenges. Honestly, I often use like Heroku or some kind of solve everything for me, or I'm making client-side software. So again, I think like the enterprise strategy makes a lot of sense because you're essentially, you know, who has these problems, right? A single developer is not often going and getting started with Terraform unless they're within a big company and trying to solve an issue.
Yep, it's pretty much true. And you can see that kind of in the opening paragraph here. Build, change, and version, very crucially there. Infrastructure safely and efficiently. That, of course, is it's kind of in the eyes of the beholder, but low-level components, compute instances, storage, networking. High-level, such as DNS, is also kind of interesting. These execution plans is something I've not come across so much. Maybe we should let's do what we always do and just start playing around with terminals.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing.
Well, let's look at these. Why don't we go back and look at the...
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just curious what they think it's for, right?
Okay. Whilst you're doing that, I'm going to boot up Docker in the background because that's going to take a bit of time. So you mean... They
have the second link as use cases.
This one? Yeah. Okay.
Heroku.
Oh, look. Heroku. Yeah. Popular paths for hosting web apps. Create an app and attach. You can use Terraform to codify the setup. So you could try that. If you're a big Heroku user, that could be something to try. See how well that can work for your current setup. I might play around with Docker, which is just rudely interrupted. Yeah, software demos. Actually, that's an interesting one. That could be something that you find useful. Yeah, like this ability to just tear up and bring down a demo infrastructure as you need to show to clients and hand it off and then take it away when they do or don't sign on the dotted line or something like that.
Disposable environments.
Same sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of this like bring them up and shut them down.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's pretty much what it's there for, yeah. So yeah, I reckon you should try the Heroku aspect. We'll see how far we go. I'll try Docker. That's our fundamental end goal anyway. Whether we get that far, I suppose, is something else. But I'll bring in your screen as well, so we can. I'll let you. I'll let you be the highlight for a second. I will both jump into the getting started. So yeah, I kind of picked. Let's see. Yeah, under the getting started options is AWS, Azure, Docker, GCP, OCI, which is Open Container, something or other, Terraform Cloud. So if you did want to go down that Heroku path, you might have to fill in some gaps elsewhere. But I'm going to go for Docker for now.
Find this, like the that use cases.
I was under documentation. I thought you were just there. I'm sure you were just there. Yeah, intro. They're getting started. Hands-on. No.
There we go.
Getting third link. Third link on the left on the menu. Third link. Yeah. That's it.
I wanted to. Okay, so the Heroku was under here.
Yeah, it's just a use case. Introduction. I mean, 7 tutorials. Let's go through what they think we should do. Okay. I like the fact that I think, judging by this big white box, there's a video each time as well. I like that. It's nice. Manage infrastructure with configuration files. Yep. I think this is a term that in the kind of big end of developer world, it's very familiar. But I think infrastructure as code was a very new concept when Terraform started.
Exactly. Yeah, and now they're using it kind of across the board on the products.
And that was, just to remind everybody, 2014, so 8 years ago. So, yeah. Standardize your deployment workflow. Yeah. Scope, author, initialize, plan, apply. Yeah. That's actually what the plan means. It's quite nice, this ability to kind of almost do like a dry run before you roll it out. Track it, collaborate, next steps. Great. Okay. Next, install. Homebrew. Oh, you're on your Mac today, I see. So
I am. Yeah.
You don't have to struggle with chocolatey.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
The first thing I see is Terraform Cloud one. Massive diagram, which I can't make any sense of.
Join me in the open source world, Ian. Join me in the open source world.
People coming out of this, entering this in every direction.
It's shiny over here. It's okay. Okay, well, there we go. All right. Tapped. I feel like I might have. I think I actually already have Terraform installed, so I don't know why I'm doing this, but. So I actually updated our Terraform documentation at work recently, which is why I know a reasonable bit around it at the moment. Yes, I do already have it installed. Though it's interesting that just do it.
So you found some open source solution. Are you on GitHub right now?
No. Just go to where you were, that page where you were, and follow. Well, I mean, if you want to go to a cloud provider, I'll leave that up to you, or just follow along with Docker. Yeah.
Right now, I'm lost at what these are. Are these deploying Terraform to these services? Is that the
idea?
Idea?
Pretty much. These are just getting started options. But I think the point is, which maybe we'll come to in a minute, is that it shouldn't matter so much. But yeah, we'll see. Tap completion. Oh yes, I will definitely. Hang on, give me a second. Going down a side angle here, but I like the fact they have autocomplete available. That's always very nice. Quick start tutorial.
Through tap.
So I jumped on a bit. Now you have installed Terraform. You can provision an Nginx server. Actually, I'll put mine. Oops. Yeah, that's me back. I just accidentally made Restream go full screen. They've added a lot of keyboard shortcuts as well, which are very useful, but I don't want to accidentally press something that I don't expect to quite yet. So there we go. I'll learn all those later. I'm taking a little bit of time off over Thanksgiving just because most of the company are. So I'm going to do a few admin things like that. Okay, so there's a tutorial folder.
It's pretty quick so far.
Yeah, and then I already did that. Okay, I'm going to jump into. I like using this view. But I'll just make my.
I got Docker on here. No. Okay. Well, I'm going to go down the Docker path now. I'll see you in 20 minutes.
It shouldn't take that long to install.
I think luckily I'm on Fiber here, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite interested. There is a tab here for web browser, which is interesting. Look, if you weren't successful installing Terraform or don't have Docker installed, you could complete a quick start tutorial from your web browser. It could be interesting.
All right. Okay. Well, let's do it. Launch terminal. Nginx Docker container hands-on lab. Setting up the challenge. Powered by Instruct.
Oh, that's a new one. A lot of this space tends to use something called and I'm having a complete blank on the name. The Kubernetes document. Huh?
REPL?
No. Catacoda. Oops. Okay.
Oh wow, I've never seen these before, but this is such a common.
I love this kind of stuff. I love. So here's another really interesting thing. The Docker image here is from an organization called Kreuzwerke, which is a German word, very much so. And I'm pretty sure that is actually a place in a place called Kreuzberg, actually, Kreuzwerk. And it was like an old factory where this web agency were who used to run a lot of meetups. I don't know if it's anything to do with them, but anyway. I digress.
The image is local.
That's because I will admit, I have run this recently, so I think I have the image still locally. Although I actually tend to wipe my Docker image quite a lot, so it shouldn't be still local. Oh, I see what you mean. Image is local to me geographically. I understand what you're talking about now. So, just caught up.
I'm glad that landed a little bit. I was like, how's dead silent?
I just caught up. Yeah. Okay. So I'm intrigued to see what is created here. So I had the config file. This is a little small. I'm not entirely sure why I'm getting all these errors, but so I think this walks through it again in a minute, but this is saying the providers we're going to use. Terraform has this concept of providers, and then we can define variables for it, I guess, which in this case is an Nginx image, and then we create a container from that image. Yeah. Seems pretty reasonable so far. I'm interested because it mentions a bunch of files here. I'd just like to see what they are. So I'm just going to reopen VS Code because I would like to actually just see what those hidden files are.
I went through the online.
Are you already done?
Code editor. Well, honestly, it's you copy and paste a configuration.
Let's have a look.
You run Terraform init, apply, and then Docker, and everything works. And honestly, I can't tell if it's even real or not at this point. It could just be emulating.
That's half the problem with those sorts of things, isn't it? It's like, here's one we made earlier, which is a reference to a British TV show that I don't expect you to know, but anyways. Okay, I'm going to carry on. I'm just digging around some of these hidden files. So there's like a lock file, which I think is familiar to anyone who's ever done any kind of
JavaScript
package manager type arrangement, yeah. And then you do apply, which I haven't actually done yet. And it should. So what was happening behind the scenes for... Okay, I'm going to just show what's on my screen because I don't think you saw this on your one. This is where... So you see I just did apply and it tells me, which I quite like, what's going to happen. And I think this is a diff generally because nothing's really changed. Everything has changed, of course, at the moment. It's all new. Plan. 2 to add. 0 to change, 0 to destroy. Yes. So go wild. Create the image. I don't know if it has to download that image, which might take a little bit of time, but we can always open up. Yeah, so you can see things are happening here. I'm not seeing it yet. So I guess it's still going. Yeah, now it's coming. There's it. There it is. Nginx there. Although you are right. Oh, here we go. We open up localhost 8000. Although, yeah, there we go. Welcome to Nginx. I think I saw you had that open, didn't you? So it must have worked for you, I guess.
It did work. The virtual terminal. And now I'm working on doing it locally, but I'm a bit behind you.
Out of interest, I might just very quickly fiddle with something. And I guess we could, in theory, find instead a specific version of the Nginx container, make a change, and then kind of see how Terraform handles that. So Nginx Docker. Yes, let's just find a specific version out of interest. Yeah, let's go for 1.20.2, for example. So, I guess we change it here. What I'm wondering is, this is slightly confusing syntax to me, but I am just jumping in and trying random things. So I get the feeling this may not work though, because that doesn't, yeah, I think I'll just leave it as it is. I think it's, yeah, okay. So in theory, now if I do apply, we should hopefully see, yeah, so we see just the change. Yep.
I see. Yeah, this is actually really nice. I'm actually onboarding an engineer this weekend past, and it's one of those projects where I sort of hacked everything together, and now I have to onboard somebody.
Don't know what you mean.
So I spent about probably 2 hours creating a guide to getting started, including, install Mongo, install Redis, and, do this environment variable, and like something like this. I probably could have spent just as much time creating a package like this if I had known already.
Yeah. That's kind of what they're designed for, and that's how we use them in our company as well. There's default kind of playbooks, if you were.
Are they made for development or more for deployment?
Both in some respects. I think that is something we might be coming to in a minute. Let's carry on. Like down here, change infrastructure, I think. Next, you will create real infrastructure in the cloud of your choice. So OCI was Oracle Cloud Environment, not Open Container Initiative.
I've never used any Oracle products.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've used Java, probably. But anyway, I could do this. It gets a little bit difficult. Let's see. Because if we jump ahead of the step, we'll probably miss something.
I expect I'll have to talk to a salesperson before I'm allowed in to their...
To Oracle? Oof, yeah. I'm just interested to know, because this looks... So this is taking us down the same sort of path, actually. Oh, flop. Are you trying out Oracle? I can see you're doing something different.
I'm trying out Oracle. That's what I said. We're going to see. I think that's a good, I already know what Google Cloud is going to be like, right?
Well, I have accounts with Google Cloud, so I could have done it relatively easily, but I see what you mean, yeah. Oracle Cloud. Well, before we get to... I'll let you play around over there.
I have to check my email.
Yeah. So this is nice as well. We have prerequisites for a tutorial. So far, the documentation has generally been pretty good. We need to make a new tutorial folder.
Do you know any companies that are on Oracle Cloud? Do you know anyone using the architecture?
Oracle?
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that as an answer.
Now, this is interesting. I'm seeing two different versions for Mac or Linux or Windows, which is, I wonder... Oh, I see. It's the Docker. Oh, it needs a specific Docker pipe. Interesting. That might have changed. That makes it a little less portable, but relatively portable, I suppose. So this is actually still, I think, the same tutorial as the last one, but we need to now step through it a bit. So this is where it's talking through a little bit of what I spoke through out of my own mind. Provider and resources. So resources define components of your infrastructure. At this moment, an image. We initted the directory. Yeah, so it's basically talking through what we already did. And you can also do formatting and validating, which is nice. Yeah, so it's basically what we all went through. You can also inspect the state, which is interesting, to see what things are. I think this probably helps the more abstract you get, of course. With Docker, you could do it otherwise.
I am being prompted to enter a credit card, so I'm going to go get my wallet.
You sure? You sure you want to do this? Well, in the meantime, I'll talk to myself. Change infrastructure. I think this is where things get a little more interesting. This is still the same, I think. In it. Yeah, so we see it's already initialized most of it. I've just got these fears, Ian, of you running up loads of debt with Oracle.
Don't worry, they're only going to make 2 test transactions. That's it.
Oh, yeah. All right. So now this is going through updating configuration. So it's doing a little bit of what I played around with already. But we're going to change the port to 8080 instead. We're getting a port conflict on some other things using the port. So we change that. And then Terraform apply. Yeah, I mean, I kind of already stepped through this. We see the diff of the change. And yes, fantastic. Thank you very much. So this is still us all playing around on Docker so far. It'd be interesting to see how we do it between environments. Destroys. I think that's reasonably self-explanatory. Input variables. This is where things become a little bit more interesting as well. So this is the file we already had. So the container name with a variable. So this is something we can add into the Terraform file within a block. I think this means it just goes loose, I think. Just like here. I find this very disconcerting because I'm used to curly brace languages having like a final closing brace. And whenever I see this, I keep thinking there needs to be like another one somewhere. But no, I think that is how the syntax works. So, okay.
So on my end, Oracle needs to manually approve my account, and that'll take up to 15 minutes or so.
You would take the hardest path.
Yeah. So we're maybe we should take that one off the documentation.
What's this Oracle company? Okay. Now, how are we doing here? Create new file variables. In main.tf, update the container resource block, which is which one? Docker. Here. The name to be the variable instead. Okay. This is a sort of somewhat basic, but this could be useful for things like you were saying, knowing which machine generated the environment, which environment it is, etc. Dev, test, that kind of thing. I think. Yeah. I don't know. I'm making that up. I'm not sure if that's a valid use case or not, but.
I think these tools also came about with this dynamic scaling, right? Like before this, you just had a bunch of Linux boxes with VMs, and that was kind of the Vagrant world. And then they're like, well, actually, if we can kind of containerize this stuff, you can just spin up more of whatever piece you need, right? Yep. And this was the beginning of that.
Yep. Can I point out something really nice, because we are sort of intentionally trying to talk specifically around developer experience stuff. Something I've noticed they do in their documentation that I really like. You notice there's this copy link here. That's fine. That's pretty. That's quite common. But something they're actually doing that I really like here is blocks like this can often be confusing, because you only really want to copy this line. Yeah. But there's a standard in terminal examples to put $1 before the command if there's other output. But then, of course, if you try and copy and paste that, you get the $, which is extraneous. Now, other places I've seen, if you clicked copy, would copy all of this text box, which of course is useless to you. But the one thing I really like about this is it's just copying the actual bit you need. Which I really like, and I'm going to dig into the JavaScript and maybe borrow that, because find out what that is.
CSS based.
Huh?
Well, it's actually CSS based.
Yeah. But just to see how that works, that's actually really nice. I like that.
I'm saying there's a CSS selector that like makes it
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There's a way to CSS has become a lot more functional.
No, I know. I'm still doing most of this with Clipboard JS, I think. Just because it's a quick and easy way of doing it. But yeah, there's probably better ways these days. So that's set a variable. Although the only thing I'm a little bit overriding the default container name. So if I go into, I should see, yet another name as the variable name there. Have you racked up Oracle bills yet, or do you want me to continue sharing?
I think you should continue sharing. I am gone back to Docker now.
Okay. And now we're going to use output values to organize data to query, which is intriguing. I think this is all what we had last time. Yep. Init apply. Yep. Okay. Create a file called output.tf. Okay. Sure. I think I might jump into now. Oops. It's the problem when I'm live streaming and running Docker. My CPU starts to run so slowly. I'm typing too fast for the. I have ordered one of the new MacBook Pros here, so we're going to have a whole other world of nightmares to deal with in a month's time.
Which one did you order?
Probably more than I need is all I'll say. But it's not coming for another. I think we need another month actually, so we have a bit of time.
The 16-inch max?
No, just 14. I got so used to now having smaller screens when I travel. I much prefer it now. So
I have trouble deciding between the two.
yeah, I took the plunge. I was thinking about it for ages. And just, okay. Define outputs for your containers ID and image ID. And I have heard there are some Docker issues, so we'll see how we go with that later. You must apply this configuration before you can use them. But I'm intrigued here because nothing has, unless this is a standard, nothing has said to use this file yet, but maybe it's some sort of standard. We'll see. Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
Well, I got a little lost, but it's just typically me skipping, looking for the code blocks and skipping anything else.
I'm a little lost at this point. I've been really following so far, but I'm slightly less lost at this point. I think the outputs.tf is magic. I don't know. Because it seems to have picked it up, basically. So it must be a magic thing. I think main.tf and outputs.tf are standards. And I think this is because, from memory, and this might have changed, of course, in recent years, but I think the original Vagrant and I think a lot of the founders of HashiCorp come from the Ruby world, I think. So I think they have the Ruby programmers from the Ruby world tend to have opinionated defaults. So maybe you have to call the files these things and then stuff can happen. I'm not 100% sure, but query the outputs. Okay, all right. So I guess could I query a specific one? So I think this is just meaning I now have output variables that I can use in other places, and there is a specific tutorial here. Yeah, terraform destroy, and then back to... So that's kind of the default tutorials. So I guess we should, in the minimal time we have left, I don't think we have time to look at console. We could figure out how we could do this with Heroku, maybe.
Does Heroku support Terraform, or is Heroku a Terraform-like thing?
Their tutorials seem to imply that.
I couldn't find that after. Heroku provider Terraform registry.
Let's see. Okay. It's here we go.
You can set it as a provider using.
Yeah. There you go. Do you want to give it a go?
Sure. I don't really get it, to be honest.
Oops.
Because Heroku uses these like machine pack things. These these packs of their VMs are modules.
Yeah. I mean, I have a Heroku account as well, so we can.
It seems like very compared. I don't know if I'm still sharing my screen, but if you look at the documentation here, this is very different than what we were looking at. This is it seems to be abandoned almost.
What, the Heroku mean?
Yeah. Do you see how this is compared to?
Possibly. I don't know. I'm not seeing it so far, but Heroku is not as popular as it used to be.
1 million installs updated 4 months ago.
Well, I think that's reasonably accurate then. Yeah, I don't have your screen if you do want to share it, but I can also just carry on. I think we're both looking at the same thing, so I'll leave it up to you. There we go. There you are.
So what I don't understand, I understand that Terraform is essentially a bunch of resources, but I just don't get how they're going to map to Heroku, or that I even trust Heroku will interpret them right.
So I'm having a look here. They have an add-on. So in the example I'm looking at, there's a Postgres add-on. It defines the plan, so hobby dev, an ID, a number of dynos,
I
formation.
see. Okay, it's a way of configuring
Yeah.
Postgres. It's a way of configuring Heroku. Oh, so okay, now it's finally clicked for me. So you can scale Heroku to like 10 more dynos and then commit that to a Git repo. That's
Yeah.
and then you can fall back to 5 dynos and have a history. That's the idea. You can
Well,
pragmatically.
or other things, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm trying to understand here is, as far as I can tell, I mean, I do have enough time left, so we could follow this through. It just needs the API key and email address, which is fun. It does create the application for you.
So is
app example? Yeah.
I feel like this is a pretty stupid question, but is Terraform more about maintaining cloud infrastructure than the actual applications running on it?
Oh,
So
definitely. Yeah, it's completely about creating the infrastructure and getting stuff onto the infrastructure. Definitely, you're exactly right. That's really what it's there for. It's infrastructure as code. To be honest with
but
you,
it's
even
not
getting
actually saying, it's not saying give me SQL, give me Nginx. It's basically saying give me a container with these. Give me this Docker container and give me 10 of them. And
yes,
then the container
but
has
I mean, interestingly, so I'll just share my screen again. So the interesting kind of where it gets kind of weird here and abstract is, oops, what did I do that for? That's not what I wanted. No, I don't want Ian full screen. I want me full screen. There we go. There we go. Right. So for example, we have a Heroku resource Postgres here. We could, if we wanted to, for whatever reason, we could create a Docker container of WordPress and connect it to a Heroku Postgres database, and it's a mixture of resources across different infrastructures. And then that's where it kind of gets interesting as well, because we could have a Google Cloud, we could have WordPress running in Google Cloud, we could have Postgres running in Heroku, and we could have a load balancer on AWS where we define them all in the one file. That's kind of where it kind of gets interesting, I think.
What I don't understand is
yeah.
Heroku does this for you for the most part, right? Like most of
Heroku for sure
is in the UI to do this. So why, like, Heroku seems like a kind of a strange choice.
Maybe. I think that's probably fairly reasonable. I can't imagine so many people using Terraform for Heroku. It's usually something, Heroku has a very valid use case, but I think people get to a certain point where they hit its limits, and then people move on to stuff like this. I get the feeling, again, it might be because when Terraform started, Heroku was more popular, and it was just an infrastructure tool of choice. But probably these days, it's less so. And it's interesting because I also see things like deploy an application to a DigitalOcean droplet. And it's the same kind of thing for me. I'm using DigitalOcean droplets for a very limited use case. And I don't know if I would really need to hook something like Terraform up to it. But I think it somewhat reveals the history of Terraform here. Because, again, DigitalOcean droplets were very popular like 6 or 7 years ago when it started, So the functionality is there, but I don't know if that many people really use it anymore.
Yeah.
They're using Docker and AWS and GCP and Azure, really these days. But I find it interesting they're there, actually. And I kind of like the fact they're there. I'm possibly more likely to actually put these into something like Terraform for precisely the reason that you mentioned earlier. You could tell this engineer that you're hiring at the moment, open up the Heroku interface, here's the login details, click this button, click that button, click this button, or you could just give them a Terraform file. It's adding that layer of abstraction feels unnecessary, but when you start to think about scaling people as well, it starts to become more relevant,
Yeah, and also I want to say liability, but it's sort of like the access manager of like who changed what and why. Like why
exactly.
Why did we go up or down, and when? Who did it? audit logs, right? So an audit log from infrastructure management is extremely
exactly, and that is where where infrastructure as code becomes very interesting, because you have things like you can deploy pull requests to different places based on the like variables, like we saw in the tutorial there. You can roll things back, of course, if a deployment goes wrong. All sorts of things like that. This gets into a whole world of GitOps, as it's called, which people have different opinions on, but tools like Terraform are basically the underpinnings of some of that stuff. And you can see, you can start to pass variables, branch names, all sorts of things, through that process. And there's a lot more besides. We got very light here. Variables we looked at, modules depends on, things like that. Loops even.
Okay, very cool.
Expressions. I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. But functions, I mean, these actually get quite complex here. File system functions, encoding functions, strings, hash functions, IP network functions, checking state. There's a whole lot going on here. I'd be interested to see what the whole cloud thing and enterprise thing becomes, though. It's like, if you have these config files that do so much for you, why do you need a cloud application to do it for you? That's actually something I'm interested to try and understand. Like, why do you need it? Let's have a look.
Is this my first thought was that it's like a way of Terraform to make money by hosting your containers on our cloud, right?
I don't know. I mean, but
like a front end, right? A lot of these developer tools make money through providing, like these front end services where it's like, you can manage it on AWS, but if you want this like Heroku level of UI on front where you scale the resources, it changes the file, the developers see it, it's linked into GitHub, etc. That's my guess.
I actually feel like it's something slightly from remote operations with Terraform. Still trying to understand. I think it's getting into this whole world of developer platforms. There's a few companies doing this now so you have a centralized management interface to what your developers are creating and stuff like that. I think, so we've got costs. You'll have things like access control and stuff like that. With Sentinel. So it's just adding, anyone can take all these config files and chuck them in and out of GitHub. Go wild. But engineering managers kind of want to have an overview of what's going on. That's the problem with GitOps. You kind of put a lot of power into a bunch of config files, which is great, but can get you unstuck very quickly if you're not careful. But I feel like there's also a concern here. I don't know when Terraform Cloud started, but I almost feel like they're late to their own party. Maybe it's like there's a lot of other SaaS products that kind of do this already, even though it's the party they started. But maybe Terraform Cloud started years ago. I have no idea. It's interesting. I can actually see a use case for this. I can see use cases for this on the teams I work on right now, actually. To be honest with you, but there's so many tools like this. It's how do you get them all to talk with each other and stuff like that. But
I mean, from an enterprise standpoint, if they're already invested in Terraform, going by the Terraform creator is usually a solid choice than the third party, right? Because Terraform will always have the latest, and they'll have a single contract with the creator of the tool, etc. So like if you look at Mongo, like there's been there's 100 Mongo clients. Right. But with Mongo, like now Mongo's either bought or built the best one. And it feels great to use the desktop Mongo client that goes to the Mongo cloud. And I'm paying one bill. And I know that when Mongo had a major version update and it left all these clients behind, but like the official Mongo client would be updated. So I think that's where even if they're late, there's still so much value in a business decision, right, to go with the actual company.
The person who knows the tool best, which is
and they're aware of their internal roadmap, right?
Which is gets us into a whole wider conversation around open source and SaaS. If the best company for providing support for an open source tool is a company that made it, it's like, is that really open source? I don't know. But this is a whole other conversation. It's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But okay, this is a slightly new world to you, maybe, Ian. But I feel like you've got some interesting insights there that you might find useful. What do you think?
Yeah, getting experience with these tools through this stream has been awesome, because again, these are things that I've heard of a million times. I've talked to engineers who use them. I have a vague idea, but just dive in and see, and just understand that some other developers' workflow. Right? There's such a variety in the things that devs do. So it's been great to become familiar with it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I might even do some of what I said. Like, even though it feels like overkill, this aspect of terraformerizing. Terraforming. Come on, Chris. Terraforming my very loose cloud infrastructure. I may do. I don't know. I have a couple of apps actually on Heroku. Most of my stuff is on Netlify because I'm just spitting out static site generators these days. But I do have some long-running JavaScript applications on Heroku, and it would be an interesting exercise just to terraform them. Yeah.
In your vacation time during Thanksgiving.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. I think we'll look at console, and then I think those will be the two big ones, and then we'll probably have a final episode where we'll look at some of the new ones very quickly. But I think console might be another big-ish one. It's quite widely used as well. But yeah, how can people stay in touch with you, Ian? I saw you have a new email address, so maybe you have something new to spruik.
I do, yeah. So I've got a new email. That is still kind of stealth. We're rolling it out quick. I'll have a bigger announcement later. Okay. For now, you can use Twitter, and my name is Ian Jennings on Twitter. The E is a 3. And what about you, Chris?
You can find me at christianschiller.com. Podcasts, other videos. I actually had quite a fascinating time 2 weeks ago playing around with GitHub Copilot, which any of you who are very astute watching this stream might have seen doing things in my VS Code, because I still have it enabled. And actually, it's not bad, actually. I have actually found it has solved some problems for me.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not bad, actually. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. So you can find that video on our website too, and some other things I've been up to. But yeah, until next time, 2 weeks time, 5:30 p.m. UTC +1 now. We've gone back again. So UTC +1.
Welcome back.
In 2 weeks. Sign us off again.
This has been Developers, otherwise known as Devx5. My name is Ian. This is Chris, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for console.
See you.